Chapter 48 Prom. How do I look? Carly asked before giving me a spin, her flared dress following along with her. Carly looked beautiful. Her elegant blue dress accentuated her curved waist and strong collarbones. Her straightened hair and subtle make-up completed the look. You look beautiful. If I saw you out on the street, I'd think you were a model. I complimented, slightly taken aback by her beauty. Don't fall for me, she joked while throwing a strand of her hair with the back of her hand. I laughed and playfully responded, I already have. Oh no, she said, exaggerated lie. My charm was too strong for her weak soul. I chuckled and put the joke behind us. Nathan is a really lucky guy. I bet his jaw is going to drop to the floor when he sees you. He better. But he is not going to be the only one. Carly grabbed a hold of my hand and gave me a spin. She continued, your boyfriend is going to pass out when he sees how good you look. Or put a baby in you. Whichever he is feeling. Oh my gosh. Carly. I cried out in embarrassment. What? Am I wrong? I averted my eyes, looking away from her face and focusing on the tall, black fan spinning in cycles in the corner of her room. See, she exclaimed. I knew it. I walked towards Carly's bed and sat myself down. I began putting on my shoes. A black pair of heels whose thin straps wrapped around my ankles. I hope I don't trip in these. Carly plopped down next to me on the bed and stared at me. So, she asked suggestively, is he good? I met Carly's eyes, giving her a blank expression. Okay. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She put her honesty up in surrender. I'm just curious. If you really want to know. I began, and she smiled and leaned in closer to me. I also leaned closer to her and whispered, it feels like I'm high on something every time we do it. Everything else just fades away. Yes, amazing. She gasped and quickly covered her mouth. Lucky. You get to have some next level werewolf sex. Is Nathan any good? I asked and raised a brow. Carly's face brightened to a light shade of pink. She was boldly asking me these questions, but when I ask her, she gets all shy. Well, she mutters, we haven't done that yet. That's understandable. It hasn't been long since you two got together. Carly nodded shyly. I guess we're just taking it slow. The room to Carly's door swung open, startling us both. Taking what slow? Carly's mom, Iris asked, her hand still resting on the door handle. Nothing. Carly blurted from beside me. I turned to face her and gave her a look. Way to be subtle. Carly. Iris crossed her arms and raised a brow at us. What's going on here? It's nothing. Carly squealed, hiding her face in her hands. She's absolutely horrible at this. Iris approached Carly, peeling her hands away from her face gently. Come on, sweetie. You can tell me anything. I placed my hand on Carly's shoulder and moved it in a reassuring motion. We were just talking about relationships, she admitted. Relationships? Are you dating someone? Carly nodded. Oh, why didn't you tell me sooner? How long has it been? Who is it? Her mother asked excitedly. Carly had nothing to worry about. Her mother seems happy for her. It's just been a few weeks, she confessed. And, it's someone you know. Iris placed both her hands over her mouth in shock. Is it Nathan? Carly nodded. Oh my gosh. Your babies are going to be so beautiful. I have to go tell your father, Iris exclaimed before running out of the room, her heels clicking as she ran through the hallway. Carly sighed and said, that went better than I expected. Yeah, your parents love Nathan. She's good at talking to adults. We were interrupted by Carly's alarm, signaling that we had to start leaving soon. Carly went to turn off her alarm on her phone and said, we should finish up and wait downstairs. I nodded in agreement, as Carly gathered her things in her purse. I looked myself over in the mirror. I was a little nervous about wearing this, but I kind of liked how I looked. I examined an elegant, long-fitted dress. It was a soft lave and a color with spaghetti straps and a deep V neck. It cinched at the waist. making my curves appear more flattering than they actually were. The bottom of the dress was flowy with its multiple layers of fabric. My hair was styled in some loose, wavy curls, courtesy of Carly. My black-heeled shoes wrapped around my ankles, barely visible by the length of the dress. Carly interlocked her arm with mine before saying, "Come on, let's go downstairs." She led me out of her room and down the stairs where we saw a not holy sighting on the couch. When we reached the bottom of the stairs, he stood up and looked at us. "Wow, you guys are all dressed up. Well, do it's prom," Carly stated in an obvious tone. "That's true." Thorny awkwardly rubbed the back of his neck and continued, "Well, you guys look good. EW, don't compliment me." Carly cringed, wrinkling her eyebrows together in disgust. I smiled and replied to his compliment. "Thank you, Anthony." He smiled back. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm." "I pity you, brother," Carly mumbled, then continued speaking regularly. "Anyways, where's Mom and Dad? They need to come take pictures of us before we leave." "Right here, Carl's," her dad Carlos called out as he reached the bottom of the stairs. I was following a few steps behind him. "Oh, look at my two girls. Both of you look so stunning," Iris complimented us, a proud and sweet smile on her face. Carly smiled and went up to hug her mum, then her dad. Carlos gave her a kiss on her forehead before saying, "You look beautiful, Carly. You too. Lauren, if your dates don't drool all over my floor, I'm going to smack them so hard they'll end up in the stratosphere." "A WW, Dad." Carly beamed, strengthening her arms around her father. Her parents were amazing. Iris took a hold of my arm and pulled me into the family hug, wrapping her arms around me and Carly. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. This is where I belong, with these people who are like my second family. I heard Anthony sigh. "It's like I don't even exist." Everyone boomed into laughter, snickering at his playful comment. After the moment ended, we all pulled away from one another. Iris brought out the family camera and began taking pictures of me and Carly, asking us to smile and pose. Just as we were finishing up our little photo shoot, the doorbell rang. I wonder who that could be," Carlos said playfully before going to open the door. Daniel and Nathan entered the living room, both dressed up in their formal attire. My eyes instantly met Daniel's, causing a warmness to spread throughout my body. I studied his photos and his outfit choice for today. He was wearing a navy blue suit with a white button up underneath. He had a black boatie at the collar of the shirt, complementing the blue blazer and pants well. His whole appearance was very clean all but one thing. His hair was styled. Unlike usual, it was in a medium part, but it still retained its naturally messy appearance. It was obvious he made an attempt to tame his hair, yet some strands still fell out of place, framing his face. I watched as his eyes scanned my body, admiring the way the dress molded onto my figure. Wow, the living room is suddenly drowning with pheromones. Anthony joke. "No kidding," Iris agreed, crossing her arms while looking at us. We all turned our attention back to Carly's parents, feeling embarrassed for being called out. Not just Daniel and I, but also Carly and Nathan. "You two boys," Carlos began, "take good care of my girls. If anything happens to them, I'm coming after you." To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. "Carlos, you'll take good care of your daughter and make sure she gets back home safe." "You don't have to worry," Nathan declared politely. "That's good to hear. I trust you. You're a good kid." "Nathan," Carlos replied to Nathan, a smile on his face. "You can put your trust in me too, so I'll make sure Lauren is safe. She's extremely precious to me. I would never let anything bad happen to her. You can count on me, Mr. Rose," Daniel stated, hoping to get Carly's dad to like him. "It's Mr. H. Brett SLR," but I know that's impossible to pronounce. Just call me Carlos," her father said while extending his hand. Daniel smiled and shook his hand firmly. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "Carlos, now that that's settled, let me take some pictures." Iris beamed, raising the camera. Iris made sure we all got our photos taken, posing together and then in pairs. After some bickering between Carly and her mom about us being late, we finally left Carly's house. As we were walking towards Daniel's car, a few feet behind Carly and Nathan, who were holding hands, Daniel leaned closer to me and whispered, "I wanted to tell you this earlier, but you look absolutely beautiful. You're stunning, princess." His hot breath against my ear sent a shiver down my spine, making me shudder. His compliment melted my heart, making me feel giddy like a child. With a smile on my face, I replied, "Thank you. Daniel, you also look amazing. You're definitely gonna be the most handsome guy at prom." He gave me such a bright smile that his eyes squinted slightly and creased at the edges. "Thank you," he answered happily. His contagious smile warmed my heart, bringing immense happiness with it. I absolutely love this man. The night felt like a blur, like a surreal dream. Everything was so vivid yet so hazy at the same time. The night went by in a flash. It was almost coming to an end now. My body was enveloped in warmness as Daniel's arms wrapped around my body. My head rested on his chest as our bodies pressed together. His chin rested on my head, my hands on his back. We swayed together as well as songs of the night echoed in the large hall. After spending the night with Carly, Nathan, Jeremy, and Daniel, we broke into pairs when the slow song started playing. We briefly ran into Julian and his boyfriend Roland, and we were all happy to see them dancing together. They were no longer hiding their love for each other from the public eye. Julian won prom king but gave the crown to Roland and boldly kissed him on stage. Tonight was a good night for everyone. Our time in this school was coming to an end. We were all getting ready to move on, to say goodbye to this chapter of our lives. Chapter 49, graduation now. "Stop," I shouted as tears streamed down my face. "Begging will get you nowhere. Stop, please." I pleaded more urgently this time, my body in pain from the cruel torture being inflicted on it. "Say you're sorry." "I can't because I'm not sorry." I broke out as another tear rolled down my cheek. "You little minx. How dare you team up with Jeremy and Lucas?" It was 1 against 3. That wasn't fair. Daniel winced as he towered over me, my hands held firmly above my head. I took a moment to catch my breath. He finally stopped tickling me. My stomach was sore from laughing, my eyes still watery from involuntarily crying. No Wednesday isn't fun without a twist. "You're a traitor for this. You'll get my payback next week. Or you could do it now," I implied suggestively, motioning with my head to the arms that held my own above my head. "I would love that," he murmured, pressing a warm kiss on my neck that made my eyes flutter shut. "But we have to get ready for our graduation." I nodded reluctantly. "You're right." He released his grip on my arms and sat up. I followed suit, sitting up and climbing off the bed. He went to his closet, pulling out his formal suit for today. I drooled as he pulled his shirt over his head, revealing his toned chest. He looked up at me and gave me a cheeky smirk. "Later, princess. We have to get ready right now." "Who says I wanted anything?" I said as I crossed my arms. He approached me, still topless, and whispered against my cheek, "I felt you get turned on, Lauren. Not to mention I could smell your arousal from a mile away." I quickly covered my face with both hands in embarrassment. "Oh my gosh, you can smell it." He gently peeled my hands away from my face and said, "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "Princess, it's nothing to be embarrassed about. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I thought you knew. He likes it. Our smell is like a drug. It makes him want you." Alex chimed in. Why do you only come out at the most embarrassing moments? It's a talent of mine. Daniel walked back towards his closet and put on a grey button-up. He finished up with closing the buttons, then slid a black tie around his neck, making a clean knot in a matter of seconds. I approached him so that I was standing in front of him. I extended my arms, fixing his messy collar. He gave me a thankful kiss on the cheek. As he slipped on a black vest, I left him to finish getting ready on his own. I had a simple, black dress prepared for this occasion. It was a mid-length spaghetti-strap dress that clung to my figure. While Daniel had his back turned to me, I undressed and quickly slipped on the fitted dress. Even though he has seen me undressed, it still feels awkward to change in front of him. However, he didn't seem to have a problem with it. He unashamedly pulled down the pants he had been sleeping in and put on a pair of black slacks. When he finished buttoning them up, he turned and faced me. When I saw his complete outfit, I realized that Daniel and I were wearing coordinated outfits, despite not intending to. He smiled when he looked at me. He closed the gap between us, pulling me into an embrace. "You look beautiful, princess," he complimented. I smiled against his chest. "Thank you. You look handsome. Not until I put this on." Daniel pulled away from our hug and went to pick up his graduation gown. He easily slipped it on onto the fabric behind him before resting his hands on his hips. He began running around the room, letting the gown flow behind him. I burst out laughing at the sight of him. "Look, I have a cape," he beamed as he ran around the bedroom. I smiled at his adorableness. I slipped on my own gown and flapped it behind me with my arms. "I do too." Daniel ran up to me from across the room and gave me an energetic kiss on the cheek. "Welcome to the club. As fun as this is, I think this club should start heading downstairs. We have to leave soon." Daniel took my hands and began leading me out his room. "I agree. Lucas and Jeremy should be ready soon." "Oh, I'm so proud of you." Eliza pinched her son's cheeks with her fingers. Daniel gave the best smile he could with his mom was scrunching up his face. "Wonks, Mom," he said distorted, intending to say thanks, Mom. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm." "These are for you, sweetie." Eliza addressed me as she handed me a bouquet of flowers. I smiled at her. "Thank you. You shouldn't have." "Nonsense. You're family now. Plus it was Daniel's ideas. He said you deserved flowers on your special day." I turned to Daniel. "Thanks, Daniel," I said with a smile on my face. I gave him a quick hug, avoiding lingering too long because we're in public and in front of his parents. We did it. I turned around to see Carly running towards me. She crashed into me, almost knocking me down. I laughed as she wrapped her small arms around me, beaming with excitement. Her parents and Nathan followed closely behind her at a walking pace. "Be careful, honey. You're wearing heels." Her mother cautioned her. "This isn't my first time in heels, Mom. See, I can even do a spin." Carly doesn't whirl on one leg and, as her mother warned, she spins off the heel and loses her balance. Nathan rushes in to catch her, holding her with both arms. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm." "Beautiful," he whispers softly to her. Her eyes light up when she looks into his bright blue eyes. "I got you," he mumbles before pulling her up onto her feet. "Okay, they'll be careful," Carly concedes. "Carly, Mom. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm." Shakes her head with her hands on her hips. Of course the boyfriend has more power over my own daughter than me. Nathan looks at her and smiles shyly. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm." "Oh, it's nothing to apologize for." Iris smirks. "I can use this to my advantage." "Mom, you better not brainwash Nathan." Iris leans into Carly and whispers, "I already have." Carly gasps and turns to look at Nathan with a scared expression. Iris chuckles and turns to Danielle's family. Sorry we had to meet like this. Iris. Carly and Lauren's mom. Lauren may not be my biological daughter, but we've raised her the past few years. I care about her like she's my own daughter. I'm glad to hear that. I knew her parents and they would have loved that she was raised by such kind and caring people. Eliza. By the way, it's so nice to meet you. Daniel's mom introduced herself. The two shook hands. I looked at Carly and smiled. I was glad everything was going smoothly. The past few months had been a roller coaster of ups and downs, but we were finally finding our footing. Thank you for everything. Carly, I wouldn't be where I am today without you. You and all your weirdness make me a better version of myself. I professed to her. Oh, Lauren. Carly broke out. She pulled me into a tight embrace and continued. You're so sweet. You should just be my girlfriend. Forget about these two. I chuckled. Along with everyone else around us. She pulled away and looked at me. But seriously, I feel the same way. You're like my sister. I never want to lose you. Never. Just make out already. Nathan shouted jokingly. I laughed once again. This was my family. For better or worse. The people here are my home. Chapter 50 Home. Wow. I can't believe I've never been in here. Well, it has to been that long since we found out we were mates. Plus my uncle was here before. I doubt I could have brought you here without you two nearly killing each other. That's true, Daniel said. But it's been a few months since he... I know. I took a deep breath and continued. But I needed some time to come back. Daniel wrapped his arms around me and gave me a kiss on the forehead. I unconsciously smiled in response. That's okay. And if you're still not ready, we don't have to do this now. Daniel and I stood in the living room to my parents' house. I looked around and could barely recognize this place. My mom always had the house orderly and well decorated. The house was lively and beautiful under her care with tons of pictures on the walls and furniture. Now, with the house under Raphaela's care, it was nothing like it once was. Everything was messy. Things were broken. Paint was fading. Vases were smashed on the floor. Picture frames were face downwards or stashed away in boxes. And furniture was dusty. I knew I would have to put in a lot of work to restore this place to what it once was. And Daniel would be here with me every step of the way, even though we wouldn't live here, since he needs to be at the pack to fulfill his duties. We discussed moving back here after he retires from his position. We can also visit the house every now and then to stay for a weekend or get some time to ourselves. As I looked around the house, I knew I had to bring this place back to life. I answered Daniel. No, I'm ready. This place deserves a good renovation. Mom and Dad worked hard to make this place their home. I want to return it to how it was before they died. Okay, Princess. I'll help in any way I can. I flashed him a smile and gave him a quick peck on the cheek. Thank you, I said to him. He smiled boyishly. Anything for my princess. Now let's get started. Which room are we hitting first? Let's start with my room. I'll pack the things I want to take with me and then we can tidy up the room. That should be enough for today since we have to go to the party later on. Daniel raised his hand to his forehead and did a soldier salute. Yes, boss. I chuckled at his response. Now that the plan was established, I led him up the stairs to my room. Wow, he marveled. So this is your room? Yep, has been since I was a little girl. I watched as Daniel looked at the dusty pink walls that were now faded after being painted the same color for 16 years. His eyes traveled to the sticky notes and picture frames on my desk. He took a few steps closer and slightly bent over to look at one of the pictures on my desk. He picked up the frame before looking at me and raising a brow. Why was his arm around your waist like that? I look at the picture and the image of me, Carly, and Anthony, the house. I was in the middle with one arm around Carly's shoulder and the other around Anthony's. Carly had her hands on her hips and his was around my waist, slightly pulling me closer towards him. That was just for the picture. Plus H is like my brother. I moved to my bed and began folding some of the clothes that I had carelessly thrown on top last time I came here. A brother doesn't put his arm around his sister like that. Or look at them like they want to make out with them. He objected. Well, that's just how we are. Not just with Unfunny but also Carly. Maybe it's because we're not actual siblings so it's not awkward. He clearly liked you. But he seems to respect our relationship now so I have no problem with him. I paused to look up at him. You're just looking into it too much. Daniel. You tend to overanalyze things. You know. That's true. But not this. This is clearly the truth. I don't know. I think I was noticed. Daniel shook his head and instead changed the topic. By the way, what's with this sticky note? Bring Carly my nuts so she can put as many as she can in her mouth. What the hell is that supposed to mean? I burst out laughing. Oh my gosh. I said in between laughter. That sounds so wrong now that I hear it. I can't believe I wrote that. Daniel continued looking at me with the most confused look on his face. I had bought a couple packets of peanuts on special. Right. So she told me to bring them to her so that she could see the maximum amount of peanuts she could fit in her mouth. Daniel raised a brow. So how many did she fit? 120. What, the 120? How did she fit that many? I have no idea. She somehow surprises me more and more every day. I returned my attention to the clothes on my bed. As I picked up the next shirt to fold it, Daniel approached me. He took a few steps towards the bed before rolling onto I exclaimed before playfully smacking him with the shirt. In trying to fold my clothes, Daniel gave me a cheeky smile before grabbing my arm and putting me down onto the bed. Once I crashed onto the mattress, laying beside him, he wrapped his arms around me. Daniel pulled me close and buried my face into his chest. At this rate, we're never going to finish in time for the party, I remarked. He wrapped his arms tighter around me and replied, We don't have to. We do. Carly's throwing the party. She might need me to help out. Isn't her brother going to be there? Only to buy the booze then HES leaving. He doesn't want to be a part of it in case his parents find out a party was thrown while they were visiting their parents. But we haven't cuddled in ages. Daniel wind. Daniel. It's been a few hours. That's a long time for me. I laughed at the adorable pout he was making. How about we cuddle after the party? Promise. He stuck out his pinky with an innocent look on his face. I laughed. Yes, I promise. I brought my pinky to his and interlocked our fingers, sealing the promise. He gave me the cutest smile before energetically hopping out of bed. So what can I help with? He asked with the smile still on his face. I smiled back. This was going to take a while, but with Daniel it was going to be fun. Hurry. It's tart, soon. I just need to comb my hair. Daniel responded frantically, searching the bathroom for a comb. We ended up sending the whole day packing and cleaning up my room, sometimes getting distracted by baby pictures and some of my old toys. When we realized how late it was, we just showered here together instead of going back to the pack house. I don't have a comb. I only have a brush. I frantically answered as I struggled to zip up my dress from behind. The brush will have to do, Daniel said as he rushed to grab my hairbrush and run it through his wet hair. He was about to rush out of the bathroom and into the bedroom to get shoes, but he stopped to look at me. He made his way back to me and kissed the back of my neck, making me shiver. Then he moved my hands away from my zipper and held it in his own hand. Don't worry. I got it. He easily zipped up my dress, then fixed my straps. Thank you, I said before giving him a quick kiss on the cheek. We both quickly made our way to the bedroom, trying not to slip with our wet feet. In no time, we slipped on our shoes and made our way over to Carly's house. Because it was only about 4 minutes away, we decided walking would be better than taking our car. When we arrived at Carly's house, Anthony was just leaving. We caught him exiting the house as we were on the pathway to their front door. There's already a shit ton on people. Make sure nothing bad happens. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, and drink responsibly. Alcohol is bad for you. Oh, and have fun. Anthony instructed before continuing to his car, spinning his keys around his finger. Once he was gone, Daniel leaned in and whispered, "See, he likes you." I gave him a confused look and he threw his head back laughing. I had almost taken him seriously. We entered the Rose house to find music blasting, people dancing and drinking, a couple making out on the sofa, and someone raiding the snack jar in the living room. I looked around to see if I could find Carly. I grabbed Daniel's hand and led him to the kitchen, dodging people left and right. I found Carly and Nathan in the kitchen winking together. We walked up to them and, when Carly noticed me, she smiled at me. Carly threw her hands up and said, "You're here." I quickly turned to look at Nathan and asked, "Is she drunk?" Nathan shook his head. "No, but almost. She's tipsy." "Have one." Carly picked up a poured shot off the table and handed it to me. I took it from her hands and looked at Daniel. He nodded and said, "It should be fine. We have a higher tolerance." He whispered the last sentence so Nathan wouldn't hear. Nathan just stared at us with a raised brow but didn't say anything. I listened to Daniel and took the shot. That did not go down easy. Who likes drinking this stuff? It's disgusting. Daniel and Nathan laughed at the face I made afterwards. "How do you feel?" Nathan asked. "Like my stomach's on fire." I replied with a grimace on my face. Nathan smiled at me and offered me another shot. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." The second one goes down easier. I took it and he was right. Then the next and the one after that were even easier, until I cowed and didn't even feel them anymore. At one point it almost felt like drinking water. "Lauren, I think that's enough," Daniel said to me, but his voice sounded distorted in my head. I felt the glass being taken from my hand and looked up to see Daniel standing in front of me. I looked around and noticed that the setting sun was no longer peering in through the windows. Night had taken over. Most of the lights in the house were turned off, making it even darker. Everything was a blur but people were dancing like crazy, including Carly and Nathan. I quickly went up to them, almost tripping on the way, and began dancing with them. Carly took my hand and we began jumping up and down together. She was definitely drunk, but so was I. When the song ended, I turned to find Daniel close behind me. I smiled brightly when I saw him and pulled him towards me. "Come on, dance with me." He smiled back at me. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "Princess, but I thought you didn't really like dancing." I yanked him closer to me and exclaimed, "I love it." He laughed loudly and took both my hands in his own. We jumped, swayed, and moved to the music. When a slow, romance song came up, he lowered his hand to my lower back and pulled me against his body. The other hand still held my hand in his own. He looked down at me with his beautiful eyes, which seemed to glow in the darkness of the living room. His wavy locks fell messily onto his face, giving his neat hairstyle a wild look. The way he looked, the way he held my body close to his center rushed to my core, making my entire body feel hot. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He leaned into my ear, his lips barely touching the skin. "You're making me and my wolf excited. Princess, you know I love your smell, but it's going to drive me crazy right now." I didn't think about what I was doing. I just acted on my desires. I wrapped my hand around the back of his neck, tangling it in his hair before lowering his face to mine. I pressed my lips against his passionately, trying to convey to him the emotions I was feeling. He returned the kiss, tightening his grip on my body. "Carly, are you okay?" I quickly pulled away when I heard Nathan ask those words. I scanned the room to see Carly leaning on Nathan. It looked like she had fallen asleep. I stumbled towards Carly with Daniel at my side helping me walk properly. "Carly," I shouted and she woke up. She looked at me and gasped. "Lauren, I haven't seen you in years." Hearing those words made me emotional, even though it had only been a few minutes and not a few years that I had last seen her. I pulled her into a hug and she began to cry on my shoulder. Seconds later, she stopped crying and exclaimed, "I want some ice cream." Nathan interjected, "No. Ice cream and alcohol do not mix well. You're going to throw up all over the living room." Carly glared at Nathan for a few seconds, but she slowly began to close her eyes. She looked like she was falling asleep once again. Nathan laughed and said, "Come on, let's get you to bed." Carly mumbled something completely inaudible. Nathan seemed to understand. He replied, "Don't worry. They'll kick everyone out once I put you to bed. We can clean up in the morning." She nodded and accepted Nathan's offer to carry her up the stairs. "Wait," I shouted and ran up to them. I hugged Carly and she weakly hugged me back. "I love you, Carly," I told her. She smiled, but her eyes were still closed. "I love you too, SpongeBob." Nathan and I both burst out laughing. I told him he could take her to bed now, so he carried her up the stairs and took her to her room. I turned to Daniel, who was smiling at me. "Come on, let's go back to your parents' place. We can sleep there for today. Then we can come back and help them clean when we wake up." I nodded and he wrapped his arm around my waist, helping me walk back without much stumbling. I thought back on the night and realized that it was all a blur. Everything went by so fast. It almost felt like a dream. A good dream. I was with the people I loved, the people that made me feel at home. When we reached the house, Daniel helped me upstairs. He gently lay me down on the bed before laying down next to me. "Do you feel sick? Or like throwing up?" he asked in a low voice, a voice I found extra sexy. I shook my head. "No, I'm fine." I reached over and pulled down the zipper of my dress. Taking it off is much easier than putting it on. I peeled it off my arms and dropped it on the floor when I finished. "What are you doing?" Daniel asked hoarsely. I could tell he was fighting off the urge to look at my body. "I don't feel sick, but I do feel like I want you right now," I whispered to him. "Lauren, you're drunk." "I don't think I should." I silenced him with a kiss, which he couldn't help but respond to. I pulled away and assured him, "Trust me, I want this. I want you more than anything right now." He closed his eyes and took a deep breath to try to calm himself. Through our mate bond, I felt his arousal rising. "Are you sure this is what you want?" he asked in a whisper. I swiftly climbed on top of him and began unbuttoning his shirt. 100% sure. In an instant, his lips crashed onto mine, taking me by surprise. His hands desperately traveled up and down my body. A moan nearly escaped my lips when he sucked on the spot on my neck where his mark rested. Daniel paused for a second, so I opened my eyes to look at him. He ran his fingers through my hair before whispering, "I love you, princess." I smiled warmly at him and said, "And I love you, Daniel." We continued that night until Daniel and I were both satisfied. Then, as promised, I made sure to fulfill my cuddling duties. We slept peacefully in each other's arms, with Daniel helping me replace the bad memories in this house with good ones. The home that once felt dangerous was beginning to feel like a safe place once again. Chapter 51, final chapter, my mate and my best friend. At one point, I thought I had to choose my mate or my best friend. I didn't think I could have both. Hell, I didn't think I deserved to have both. But now I sit in the back seat holding my best friend's hand while I gaze at my mate lovingly. Anthony is driving Carly and Nathan to the airport. Daniel and I decided to tag along to say goodbye one last time. They're going to college for years, so I need to spend as much time with my best friends as I can. Down to the last second, Nathan sat next to Carly, resting his head on her shoulder. I sighed and said, "Who put me in the back seat with these love bears?" Anthony jumped in and complained, "How do you think I feel in fifth wheeling?" I chuckled and said, "That's true." Daniel turned to smile at me. He was sitting in the front seat, next to Anthony. When we arrived at the airport, Anthony and I helped Carly take her bags. She had 5 suitcases. so I wondered how she was going to manage when she arrived at her college. Faster. Peasants. I have 15 minutes before my plane leaves, she urged. I rolled my eyes at her but began walking faster. My heart began to pound in my chest when we arrived at the check-in area. In a few minutes, my two best friends were going to be gone and I wouldn't see them again for a few months. After Carly and Nathan both checked into their flight, we went to the waiting area. They were told that passengers were already boarding their flight and that they needed to hurry. Carly looked at me and gave me a sad look. This is where we say goodbye. Poren. I chuckled and said, even when saying goodbye, you still call me that name. When I see a tear roll down her cheek, I stride towards her and pull her into a hug. She wraps her arms around me tightly as she sniffles into my shoulder. I'm gonna miss you, I say in a shaky voice. Me too. I pull away and wipe the tears from her face. She smiles sadly at me and steps back. What about you, brother? And Shawnee asks Carly, calling our attention to him. I have a brother, Carly asks quickly. Anthony chuckles and walks towards Carly. H.E.S. trying not to show it. But H.E.S. sad as well. His eyes are red like H.E.S. holding back tears. He pulls her into a hug and she tightly hugs him back. This has to be the first time I've seen them hug. It'll also be the last for a long time. When she pulls away, tears are streaming down her face once again. And Fanny begins giving her a small speech, telling her to care of herself, to make sure she brushes her teeth every day, and not take any drinks from suspicious people. Meanwhile, Nathan calls out to me. To be honest, I always thought it would be me saying goodbye to you and Carly. I chuckled and said, no, we would have dragged you with us. She would have kidnapped you if she had to. He smiled and said, it's not gonna be the same without you. I feel the same. It's gonna be lonely without you guys here. Nathan pulled me into a hug and said, we'll see each other in a few months. We'll visit during winter break. I smiled sadly. You better. We pulled away from the hug and Nathan turned his attention to Daniel. He extended his hand, and Daniel took it. As they shook hands firmly, Nathan said, I thought you were a troublemaker, but now that I know you I can see that you're a good guy. Take good care of my friend. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Daniel smiled at him and said, of course I will. Carly walked towards us and pointed a finger at Daniel. You better not make her cry or anything. Treat her well, Carly said menacingly. I chuckled when Daniel raised his hands in defense. I won't, he declared. Good. Putting her finger down, Nathan took Carly's hand and said, we should get going now. Carly nodded, then turned back to us. I'll see you all in a few months, she announced with a sad smile. She was clearly holding back more tears. Bye, Carly. Bye, Nathan, I said while waving at them. They turned and, just like that, they were gone. My two best friends. The two people that got me through high school. The two people that made my life a whole lot better. Daniel pulled me into a hug. It's gonna be okay, he whispered into my ear as he soothingly stroked my arm. I simply nodded into his chest as I bit my lip, trying not to cry as an emptiness creeped into my soul now that Carly and Nathan were gone. The ride back was mostly silent. Everyone was reeling from what just happened. Until the other, I lost my two best friends, and Thorley dropped us off at my parents' house. Today would be the last day we spent cleaning. Over the summer, we managed to nearly restore the house to the way my parents had it. We hired people to repaint the walls. We cleaned and reorganized the rooms. We put pictures back where they belonged. We changed out some furniture. The past 4 months were extremely busy. We spent a lot of our time fixing up the house. When we entered, we looked around to make sure everything was in place and nothing was forgotten. Daniel and I had moved the stuff I would be keeping here into my old parents' bedroom. That would be our new room. Daniel and I planned to spend the upcoming weekend here. As we fixed it up, we grew to love this place. It was cozy and more personal than the Pack House or Delta House. It was our own home. That's probably why my parents wanted to live here in the first place, to have a place of their own. After doing a final sweep and mop of the floors, I grabbed the last of the boxes from my old room, which I would be taking with me to the Delta house. We were moving into the house tomorrow. When that came, I didn't even have time to think about Carly's departure because of how busy I was. The pain was still there, but at least I was distracted for a while. The Delta house was pretty big. It had 2 floors with many rooms. This time, we wouldn't have to share it with anyone else. For the years that Daniel would be the active Delta, the house was all to ourselves. When Daniel and I finished remodeling and decorating, we moved in all of our things. After a few months, it was finally starting to feel like home. The place where we would hold dinners and reunions. The place where we would raise our kids. The place that I would share with the love of my life. As we inherited the Delta house, we also inherited more responsibilities. Daniel began to have regular work hours, typically from 9 to 4, sometimes longer and sometimes shorter. Sometimes he was called in at random times, like at the middle of the night or before the sun even began to rise. Sometimes I didn't see him all day, or even worse, for a few days. Sometimes his schedule was hard for me to accept. I missed him a lot and often worried for him, especially since I was spending a lot of time alone at home. I would call Carly and Nathan, but they were busy with college. I hung out with Evan and Anthony, but we eventually had to part ways. At one point, I decided that I needed a role in the pack. I wanted to feel like I belonged in Silver Coat Pack. I wanted my very own role instead of just being the Delta's mate. I talked to Jeremy about having a role. When he told me about the different roles I could have in the pack, I decided I would follow in my father's footsteps. I would be a pack warrior. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Daniel was too fond of the idea. He didn't like that I would constantly be putting myself in danger or fighting for my life. But he accepted it because it was something I wanted to do. How's training? Daniel asked me on one of my first days of training. I was bent over with my hands on my knees. Beads of sweat were rolling off my forehead. I took a deep breath before standing back up. Not so great, I said breathlessly. In out of shape. Daniel gave me a pat on my back before offering me a rag. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Take this. But what brings you here? Daniel smiled. I asked Jeremy for a favor. The task he gave me was to check in on the warriors, but it was just an excuse for me to see you train. I smiled back at Daniel. The fact that he went through all that trouble for me was adorable. He extended his arms, offering me a hug. I put both my hands up in front of me, signaling that he should stop. Wait, I interjected, in awe sweaty. Daniel enclosed me in his arms anyways. He held me in a tight embrace, allowing my sweat to rub off onto his skin and clothes. That doesn't matter to me, sweaty or not. I still love holding you in my arms, he professed. I smiled into his chest. Daniel always knew what to say to make my heart melt. Daniel pulled away from our embrace and gave me a kiss on my cheek. Now go kick some ass, my princess. They'll be here for a while cheering you on, he encouraged. Okay, Daniel, but watch out. Pretty soon I'll be the one calling you my princess in need of being rescued. I just need to train hard enough to be stronger than you. Daniel laughed as I walked away from him and towards the other trainees. Once practice was over, Daniel was still waiting for me. I thought you were going to leave soon after you saw me. I questioned Daniel. I was going to, but I decided to clear up my schedule for today so we could spend some time together. The past few months have been busy and we haven't really had time to go on an actual date. Now that you mention it, it has been a while, but you didn't have to clear up your whole schedule. I know you're busy. Daniel took my hand in his, intertwining our fingers together. I can catch up tomorrow. Today is about me and you. Princess. I looked down as a smile spread across my lips. Daniel was the sweetest mate ever. Any chance I can take a quick shower before we go? Yup. Popping the key. I already have everything ready. He gave me a wink and suggestively whispered, but we can shower together when we get back. I gave him a mischievous smile. Sounds good to me. Daniel and I walked away from the outside training area. He led me into the forest, hand in hand. After a few minutes of walking, we came across a small river with a nearby picnic blanket. We were met with an abundance of fruit, snack, mini sandwiches, and a bottle of wine. I stopped walking and looked towards Daniel. Daniel, I beamed. Did you do all this? He smiled and pulled my hand so that I followed him onto the blanket. As we were sitting down, he admitted, I did. I wanted us to have a nice little date, here away from all our troubles and responsibilities. I know you're still heartbroken about your friends leaving and also stressed with training. I wanted you to forget about all of that, even if it's just for a little while. I immediately crashed into Daniel, knocking him over so that we were laying on the blanket together. I wrapped my arms around him, pulling him into a tight embrace. As we lay together, the sound of lapping water and his touch relaxed my body. The moist air of the forest freshened me up, soothing my skin. Thank you, Daniel, for everything you do for me. I paused to look into his eyes, whose vivid color had me hypnotized. I'm so thankful that the moon goddess chose me as your mate. You're perfect for me in every way. Daniel gave me the sweetest, most vulnerable smile. His eyes gleamed with so much love and adoration that I couldn't help but shiver as he looked down at me. Me too, my princess. I can't imagine a life without you. You complete me in every way possible. That is why he paused for a second to pull something out of his pocket. I want to give you this. My right hand rose to cover my mouth as he took my left hand in his own. He slipped a beautiful ring with an emerald green jewel onto my ring finger. Daniel, I marveled. Completely in shock, I broke into tears as I looked at the ring. As I admired it, I came to a realization. It was my mother's. I don't know if you recognize it, but this ring belonged to your mother. They were able to recover this from the rogues that killed your parents, because we thought that you were dead and your uncle didn't want the ring. My mom held on to it to remember your parents, but this ring belongs to you, so it's only right that you have it. A silent tear rolled down my cheek as I stared at the beautiful ring on my finger. Not only will this ring be a reminder that I will love you for the rest of our lives, but it will also be a reminder that your parents are always with you, even though they are no longer here with us. Daniel gently brushed away my tears with his thumb and kissed on my cheek. We both looked down at my hand that wore my mother's ring. Thank you, Daniel. This means so much to me. His fingers gently brushed my hand as we looked up and smiled at one another. As I looked at Daniel, the most loving, kind, and thoughtful person I had ever met, I knew I was ready to spend forever with my soulmate. Epilogue 1. Alternative Anthony's mate Anthony's POV. Come on, you wussy. I need you to do something for me. Cardi urged as she yanked me out of bed. Ugh, Cardi, it's 6 in the morning. I responded, still half asleep, and you can go back to sleep in a few minutes. It's Lauren's birthday today. It has to be perfect. I perked up slightly. I already knew it was her birthday today, but hearing the mention of her woke me up. Then, almost instantly, my mood plummeted. If I remember correctly, my werewolf friend told me the werewolf usually find their mates when they turn 18. That meant she would soon find someone she would spend the rest of her life with, and I'm going to have to live with that. Fine, I mumbled. But you owe me. Carly ignored me and continued dragging me towards her room. I sluggishly stumbled behind her. When she opened the door, I saw Oren sleeping peacefully. My eyes were immediately drawn to her. She looked absolutely beautiful. I always thought she looked beautiful, but today she had a special glow to her even though she was only sleeping. I wanted to go up to her and hold her in my arms and hold up. What the hell am I thinking? I shouldn't be thinking like this. I can't be thinking like this. Carly asked, annoyed, and waved her hand in my face. What? I realized I hadn't heard a word she said. Go lay down and pretend to be me. Doofus. My mouth nearly dropped to the floor. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. What? Carly face palmed. I know what you said. I interrupted. But I am not doing that. That's weird. She's gonna be uncomfortable when she wakes up. I need you to take my place. She's going to wake up soon if I'm not in bed. She has some sixth sense or something if I'm not in bed with her. Carly, you're insane. In leaving? I say as I'm about to walk out the door. But she yanks me back and pushes me onto the bed, nearly falling on top of Lauren. Carly, what the hell? I whisper, yeah. I could have landed on her, or woken her up. Carly smiled at me, but you didn't. I watched her eyes move behind me, and suddenly I felt an arm wrap around me and pull me close. Carly smiled and said, now you can't move. My heart nearly dropped as Lauren's hand brushed my arm. I was overwhelmed as a wonderful sensation spread across the skin that was grazed by her touch. See ya. Loser Hassan loser. Carly teased as she ran out the door, closing it quietly behind her. I stared at the ceiling in confusion. What was going on? I'd liked Lauren for a long time now. But what is this? Why am I feeling like this towards her? Especially now that she's out of my grasp. I turned my body to face her and nearly jumped at the proximity of our faces. My heart began to race and my face grew hot. I shivered when she snuggled into my chest, leaning closer towards me. I wanted to wrap my arms around her, but that would be wrong. I closed my eyes, trying to shut off my brain. Lauren's POV. I shuffled around in bed, but was startled by an overwhelming tingly sensation that made my body jump. My eyes shot open to see a figure lying next to me. Not just anyone. It was Anthony. His eyes widened when they met mine, causing him to stumble and fall out of the bed. I almost whimpered at the loss of contact. The sparks were gone and I was left with a longing sensation, wanting to reconnect my skin with his. This surprised me. What the hell was I thinking? Why was I feeling like this? Why do you think? My wolf's voice intruded my thoughts. It's our mate. She has been here all along. Right under my nose, and I never realized. What? I responded in complete disbelief. No, that can't be. She is not a werewolf and it's not common for us to have human mates. But it's not impossible. Now go to him. Claim him so everyone knows he is ours. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Slow down. I can't do that. What if is dating someone? What if he doesn't like me? Archie is human. He doesn't know about us. How is this going to work? I blocked out Alex and focused on the situation at hand. This couldn't be happening. Not with my best friend's brother. He was like family. To be fair, I've always thought he was cute and extremely sweet. And really good looking. Now that I think about it, is actually really hot. No, what am I saying? That has to be my wolf talking. What would Carly think of this? What would her family think? Are you okay? I ask as I sit up on the bed. I stare down at Anthony and immediately get captivated by his deep brown eyes, his sharp nose and jaw, his slight stubble, his heart-shaped lips tempting me to kiss him. Yeah, he answered awkwardly and stood up. I'm sorry you probably feel uncomfortable. But Carly, no. That wasn't uncomfortable. You don't need to apologize. I interjected. I climbed off the bed and extended my arm to offer him help standing up. As I stood before him, I watched him scan his eyes up my body, traveling up my thighs that were exposed by my high shorts. Then they traveled up my waist, past my breasts, and to my shoulders. Seeing him on my body made me shiver and an unfamiliar desire filled my body, urging me to complete the mating process. Alex broke through, entering my mind once again. See, he clearly wants you. Tell him is our mate. He'll understand. No, I can't do that. I'm gonna scare him off. Anthony took my hand after a long pause, but both of us recoiled as sparks were set off by each other's touch. What was that? Looking completely baffled. Maybe static, I answered spontaneously. That didn't feel like static to me, he responded. You guys ready? I heard Carly whisper from outside the door. Yes, let's go inside. Her mother, Iris, responded to her. I quickly turned my head to see Carly, her mom, and her dad all walking while holding a cake with 18 colored candles. They began singing Happy Birthday, taking me by surprise. When they finished, I smiled and blew out the candles to the cake. They cheered for me and urged me to come downstairs. Carly dragged me out, taking me to the kitchen. I looked back to see Anthony looking towards us. He looked confused yet slightly dejected. Anthony spoke. Lauren, are you still busy? Yeah. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milburn. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I'm about to do homework. After I got back from school, I tried to avoid Anthony as much as I could. I didn't know what to do with this situation, so I decided to stay away from him while I figured out what to do. It won't take long, Anthony said with pleading eyes, making it impossible to say no. Okay, I conceded. What did you want to talk about? Not exactly talk. Anthony pulled out a small box from his left hand, which had been hidden behind his back. He continued, I wanted to give you this before your birthday ended. Anthony, you didn't have to get me anything. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Feeling bad. I wanted to. You may not like what I got you, but I just wanted to give you something special. No, I'm sure you'll love it, no matter what it is, I said with a smile to reassure him. I took the box from his hand. Our hands brushed each other slightly, making me jump back at the feeling. Anthony must have felt the same because he gave me a confused look. Luckily, he didn't say anything about it. I opened the box and, instantly, my mouth dropped. Inside was a beautiful silver necklace with a small gem at the center of the pendant. Anthony, it's beautiful. I beamed. He seemed to get embarrassed when I told him that. He put on an awkward smile and began brushing the back of his hair with his fingers. It was extremely adorable. An urge overtook me and I quickly closed the gap between us. I pulled him into an embrace, one that was nothing like we've ever shared before. All others were polite, but this one was passionate. I held him tightly in my arms, gripping his shirt in between my fingers. My entire body felt like it was on fire. I was overwhelmed with sensations as sparks flew off our bodies while they molded into one. I took a deep breath. This felt like home. I jumped when the door flew open. I turned to see Carly standing at the doorway. The ice cream that she had in her mouth fell out and plopped onto the floor. I quickly backed away, instantly making me miss his touch. I was just thanking him for the gift he gave me. I quickly exclaimed. Carly simply stared at us for a few seconds with her mouth open. She reached her hand over to the doorknob while the other held her ice cream cone. She closed the door slowly without saying a word. I not Honey and I both looked at each other awkwardly. Thanks for the gift. Yeah. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Milburn. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You'll go to my room then. Anthony left Carly's room, closing the door behind him. I hope Carly doesn't think anything of what she saw. I don't think she'll like the idea of me dating her brother. I looked at the necklace and smiled down at it. It was a gift from my mate. I carefully took it out of the box and placed it around my neck. Once I had latched the chain, I looked at it in Carly's mirror. It was beautiful. I wouldn't take it off for anything, not even to sleep. I smiled to myself. Anthony didn't know he was my mate, but still this small gesture made me extremely happy. The next few days were very difficult to get through. I basically lived with the Rose family, forgetting that Anthony was my mate was impossible, especially when my wolf kept insisting that I mark him every few seconds. Go mark him. She is only a room away, she insisted. I turned in bed, trying not to wake Carly. I can't. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylen Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I said to her, we've been through this over 100 times already. At least go see him. She whimpered. I miss him. How about we go see him tomorrow? I promise we will. It's late right now. I don't want to bother him. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You promised. So no take-backs. I chuckled to myself, fidgeting with the necklace he got me. I tossed and turned for a few more minutes. Eventually, I grew restless. I was bored and agitated. Unlike Carly, who was snoring beside me, I cowered in sleep. I carefully stood up, trying not to wake her. I crawled out of bed and quietly made my way across her room. I made sure to close the door behind me as I left the room. I began heading down the stairs. Maybe a midnight snack would help. I froze as I reached the bottom of the staircase. The hair on my arms stood when an enchanting smell entered my nose. I was immediately captivated by the scent. It compelled me to approach it, which I desperately wanted to do. I was ready to turn and bolt up the stairs, but he called out to me before I could. "Lo, I didn't think you were awake," Anthony commented. I looked over at my mate, who was sitting on the couch eating cookies in the dark. I just came down for a snack," I admitted. He chuckled and held up the pack of cookies. "Looks like we had the same idea. Come sit with me. I'll share my cookies." I made my way across the living room and took a seat on the couch, leaving enough room between the two of us, and smiled when I turned to look at him. He offered me the pack of cookies, which only had one row left. I took 3 and thanked him. I raised an eyebrow and asked, what happened to the other 2 rows? I may or may not have eaten them all. I laughed and commented, "No way you ate 2 rows." "Hey, I was stress eating." "Stress eating? What has you stressed?" I asked with concern. "Oh, it's nothing," he quickly exclaimed. "Just school." I nodded. "I get that. College must be hard." "It can be, but it's fun sometimes." I finished another cookie before asking, "Do you like going to college?" He looked up to think for a second before responding. "I do. I met a lot of good people." My stomach dropped when I saw the smile on his face. Have you met someone in your college that you like?" He quickly turned to me and shut down the idea. "No, not at all. I was only talking about friends," he urged as his hands went up in defense. I was slightly taken aback by the intensity of his response. I didn't expect him to react so fervently, but it drew a smile on my face. I was glad he wasn't interested in anyone. He was my mate. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I looked down to hide the smile on my face and responded with. Anthony cleared his throat and held his glass of milk towards me. "Do you want some? Cookies aren't the same without milk." I nodded and said, "Thank you," before dipping my cookies and taking a small sip. I set down the glass on the coffee table and turned to face Anthony. "Aren't you sleepy? You have morning class tomorrow." "Right?" I asked him, my mouth still slightly full with cookies. I noticed Anthony was staring at me intensely, so I froze as I looked into his beautiful brown eyes. A kind shiver ran down my spine as he brought his face closer to mine. The sound of my heart beating in my ears seemed to echo through to the room. The world around me blurred as Anthony's face neared mine. My breath hitched when my eyes traveled to his lips. I imagined the feeling of him pressing his lips to mine, which made my eyes flutter shut. I heard rustling as Anthony slowly closed the space between us. I opened my eyes, one at a time, when I felt his breath fanning my cheek. Anthony was looking down at my lips, his own lips slightly parted. My skin ignited when his fingers brushed against my cheek as he brushed a strand of hair behind my ear. When he finished, his fingers traveled up to my face and gently brushed the corner of my lips. Anthony's hand lingered for a second. Sparks ignited as our skin connected. but both our minds were busy being preoccupied with each other to notice. Anthony looked up into my eyes, a wild yearning revealing itself in his expression. Butterflies danced around my stomach as the thought of him kissing me flooded my desires. An ache formed in my heart when Anthony looked away from me and pulled his face back. The space between us grew once again. I almost whimpered as I was left with a yearning to be close to the man in front of me. To my agent extraordinaire, Myelin Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You had a piece of cookie. I'm sorry I acted without saying anything first. No, it's nothing to worry about, I responded, still dazed. Anthony cleared his throat and leaned back into the couch. Facing away from me, I stood up and said, I think I'm going to head to sleep. Thank you for the cookies. I gave Anthony a small smile before rushing towards the stairs. Good night, Lauren, he called out to me. I stopped and turned to see Anthony looking at me. Good night, Anthony. I went up the stairs and back into Carly's room, with an uncontrollable pounding in my heart. I cuddled next to Carly. The more I thought about Anthony, the more my yearning for him grew. Anthony's POV? I don't know. Man, it's all so weird. All of a sudden I can't stop thinking about her more than before. Something about her calls out to me. I just feel like I gotta be with her. I say to Jason, my werewolf friend, as I toss a small ball into the air and catch it repeatedly. Him on his bed, laying on my back, while H.E. is doing homework on his desk. He raised a brow at me but didn't say anything. He turned back to his textbook and continued taking notes. I continued my rant to him. The strangest thing is that every time we touch, there's some sort of sparks. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like nothing I've felt before. She says it's static, but it's not that. I know it. He froze completely, then turned his entire chair to look at me. Now he looked completely serious. You're kidding, right? No, why would I joke about this? Remember how I told you Shess a werewolf and that we find our mates after a certain age? Well, it sounds like you're her mate. I quickly sat up on the bed and stared at him in disbelief. To my agent extraordinaire, Myelin Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. There's no way. Right. I'm not a werewolf. Or am I? Mates aren't always the same species. There's been werewolves mated to humans before and even witches. So in her mate. I ask hopefully. It sounds like it. Either that or the static in your house is terrible. I smiled unwillingly. Isn't it? The person Shess meant to be with. All these years I've liked her but never expected to get this chance to be with her. How did I get so lucky? Thank you. To my agent extraordinaire, Myelin Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I have to go, I said before urgently grabbing my bag and bolting out of his room. I ran out of his building, out of the university and all the way home. The smile on my face never wavered. I had to get home and see her. When I got home, I bolted into Carly's room and found Lauren sitting alone on Carly's bed, her hands holding a hardcover book. Lauren, I panted, trying to catch my breath. She immediately stood up and made her way towards me. Are you okay? She asked worriedly. I'm okay. I'm more than okay. She gave me a confused look. I grabbed her arm, making her jump at the touch. Her skin sending pleasant waves throughout my body. You feel that? Like I said the other day. I think it's just static. She replied nervously. No, that's not gonna work on me. To my agent extraordinaire, Myelin Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Taking a step closer, her breath caught in her throat as I neared her. I took a deep breath and admitted, I know you're a werewolf. A frightened look spread across her face. What? How did I slip up? Did I hurt anyone? She asked frantically. No, definitely not. I tried to calm her down. I have a werewolf friend. I found out about you through him. And he also told me about mates. She visibly gulped. but I began stroking her arm gently. That seemed to ease her. "Lauren," I asked in a whisper, "am I your mate? I feel it. The sparks. The attraction. I just want you. I want to be with you so bad it hurts." "That's not you," she replied solemnly. "That's not what you really want. That's just the mate bond speaking." I cupped her face with my hands and made her look up at me. "Lauren, I've loved you for years now. I've wanted nothing but to take care of you, to treasure you. I'm not saying this because I'm suddenly your soulmate or whatever. I'm saying this because this is how I've felt about you since day one." I watched as she nearly teared up, overwhelmed with emotion. I pulled her into a hug and she instantly relaxed against my touch. "I don't know what to say," she mumbled into my chest as she wrapped her arms around me. I gently pulled away from her and looked into her bright green eyes, then to her rosy lips. "You don't need to say anything," I whispered. I lowered my face towards hers, causing my heart to begin pounding wildly in my chest. I watched as she closed her eyes, just as she did a few nights ago. I followed suit, closing my eyes before pressing my lips to hers. My entire body erupted into a euphoric feeling. The way her lips brushed against mine nearly made my heart explode. Our lips slowly brushed against each other as we explored this new feeling. Lauren and I both pulled away slowly and rested our foreheads together, our eyes still closed. "I've waited so long for that," I whispered, "and it was worth it." I heard a small laugh escape her lips. It was the cutest sound I've ever heard. I loved the way she smiled, the way she laughed. "Thank you, Anthony, for understanding my situation. You don't know how happy I am right now." I smiled and looked into her eyes as I said, "Not as happy as I am." Lauren and I both jumped at the sound of the door creaking. We immediately turned to look at the door to see Carly, Mom, and Dad peeking in. "Oh, crap," my dad whispered before they all ran away so we wouldn't see them. I looked to Lauren, who wore a worried expression. I rested my hand on her face and gently asked, "What's wrong? What will your family think of me? What will Carly think? She's gonna be mad. I can't lose her." She panicked. "Lauren, it's going to be okay," I reassured her. "My family adores you, and something tells me Carly's going to be excited about this." She looked at me hopefully. "You think so?" "I do. Now let's go talk to my nosy family." She nodded. So I took her hand in mine and led her into my parents' room where everyone was whispering loudly. I opened the door, still holding Lauren's hand. Everyone immediately stopped talking and turned to us. My dad put his hand over his mouth to cover a gasp when he saw us holding hands. "Mom, Dad, Carls, I know you guys saw what happened. I just wanted to tell you guys that me and Lauren, well, we like each other. We want to explore these feelings we have for each other." I felt Lauren squeeze my hand tighter, so I began rubbing circles on the back of her hand. "I know. I'm so excited for you guys." Mom squealed. "I've seen you ogle Lauren for the past few years. This is finally happening. Your kids are going to be so cute. I can't wait," Dad added, which made Lauren visibly embarrassed. I turned to Lauren, who was looking at Carly while waiting for her to reply. Carly wore a serious expression on her face, making me a little nervous. She pointed at me. "Let's get something clear. Lauren will spend 97 of her time with me. You get the other 3." Carly crossed her arms and glared at me. I immediately broke into laughter. "Yes, Carly, I understand." After I responded, her face instantly beamed and a smile formed onto her lips. "I'm so happy. My nephews will have the best auntie ever. I can't wait." I watched the way Lauren's face grew red with embarrassment, which I thought was adorable. "Carly, it's too early to talk about kids," Lauren exclaimed with embarrassment. My entire family, including me, laughed at her response. Lauren was already part of the family, but now she was also my soon-to-be girlfriend. She was my future wife, the woman who would be the mother of my kids. This is where she belonged, by Carly's side, by my side.